The Climate Web sorts and links together an enormous amount of climate-relevant information and potentially actionable knowledge, and it is an open access resource that users are free to explore and use at www.theclimateweb.org. But the reality is that many people don't actually know they're looking for actionable knowledge on climate change, and the fact that they've never encountered the brain software before makes it less likely that they'll choose to come up even a short learning curve and take advantage of the 16,000 hours of searching and sorting that is built into the Climate Web. That's why the Climate Web includes many examples of information linked together into a variety of climate stories that might help advance the needs of individual users. In doing so, the Climate Web is not pushing any particular story upon anyone. The idea is to make it easier to explore all kinds of potentially actionable knowledge. For example, more than 2,000 index entries make it easy to literally click your way through the entire topic of climate change, and to encounter topics and ideas that you'd never thought of before. Here the index entry pertains to forestry offsets. Here is the index entry for the electricity sector, illustrating all the subtopics that are also available. You can explore almost 100 climate topics through comprehensive deep dives. There is nothing else like this collection of information covering the entire topic of climate change in all of its glory as a wicked problem. Each deep dive is consistently organized for easy access. You can see here the sources headings, news headings, networks headings, and knowledge base headings I've previously talked about. But you can also see new categories, e.g. arguments. Arguments help you explore different perspectives on a topic. For example, look at the very different perspectives coming out of the Paris climate talks in 2015, all organized within the Paris Agreement deep dive. Imagine being able to explore each of these perspectives simply by clicking on the argument and accessing ideas taken from hundreds of different sources. Similarly, the Climate Web uses a Q&A format to organize some kinds of information. In this case, questions relating to how integrated assessment models are used to forecast the economic outcomes of climate change. Similarly, if you're interested in exploring or teaching climate change as an example of a wicked problem, the Climate Web gathers together Q&As you might want to explore. Similarly, the Climate Web can assemble core information collections like this core library tackling business climate risk issues. Read these 90 or so reports and you'll have a solid grasp of business climate risk issues. Of course, with the Climate Web, you don't have to read all the reports to get at their core ideas, and you don't have to worry about forgetting what you've read within a few days or a couple of weeks. It's all available to you in the Climate Web. In some cases, information in the Climate Web is organized in much more complex ways to reflect complex topics. For example, you may have heard of the popular Project Drawdown work of Paul Hawken's team, recently released as this book. You can explore all of the Project Drawdown options in the Climate Web, but in many more ways than you can actually do in the book or on the website. Here are the options themselves, including the basic numbers provided at the Project Drawdown website. But what about thinking through the different kinds of barriers the different options face? Not something discussed in the book or at the website, but something explored in the Climate Web. Or the sectors that all the different options fall into. Each Project Drawdown option is linked to an index entry in the Climate Web, in addition to potentially other links, which in turn opens up much more information for exploring that Project Drawdown option. Overall, the software platform used in the Climate Web makes it possible to explore topics in many more ways than you'll ever find in a book or a report, or at a dedicated website. Topical dashboards in the climate web are another advanced organizational structure. In this case, a dashboard pulling together potentially good news stories regarding climate change. A sea level rise dashboard providing a comprehensive look at the entire topic on a single screen. A climate change fingerprint dashboard, allowing review of all of the elements of the climate fingerprint on a single screen, while also allowing you to dig deeper into each fingerprint element. A business climate risk dashboard, actually kept outside of the climate web, but offering the ability to track the entire business risk conversation on a single screen. In some cases, the organization of information gets even more sophisticated. When it comes to climate risk scenario planning, for example, the climate web organizes enormous amounts of information to facilitate scenario planning and the development of scenarios. This first screenshot shows the higher level end of the scenario planning structure. This second screenshot gets into more detail for each individual scenario variable, showing how individual risk variables are laid out, helping anyone working on climate change risk scenarios to save hundreds of hours at a minimum, while generating more effective scenarios. Note that this scenario planning overlay is an unusual case in that the overlay is not visible in the open access climate web. We turn it on and off for scenario planning purposes. This example illustrates how the climate web can explore a specific question in great depth, in this case the how and why of business responses to climate change. In effect, the climate web is serving as a dialogue map, but with the advantage of being able to link to all kinds of relevant supporting resources, including sources, news, and arguments. In part 5 of this video series, I've explored the organization of actionable knowledge in the climate web. Like this Lego city, it reflects a massive structuring of potentially actionable knowledge to help inform climate storytelling and decision-making. But the climate web is always evolving and can be adapted to many needs. Part 6 explores how the climate web can actually be customized specifically to the goals and needs of specific audiences and even individual users.